Hey, it's Kyle here. Today I'll be talking about episode 6 of The Acolyte, Teach/Corrupt. This review will include some spoilers, so if you haven't seen the episode yet, please go watch it first and then come watch my review. And with that spoiler warning out of the way, let's get started talking about Teach/Corrupt. So I enjoyed this episode a lot. Obviously not nearly as action-packed as the previous episode, which was basically non-stop lightsaber fighting. I think nobody was expecting it to be as action-packed as that. It'd be hard to do that episode after episode. But this episode was very cool in its own right, with a lot of really cool character development, character interactions. I think we're getting a good picture of what's in the minds of the various characters we're dealing with at this point. So I really enjoyed this a lot. And I'm excited where the episode left off, because I think can kind of see what we coming up in episode 7. But basically you can divide this episode into 3 parts. 2 main parts. You get Sol and May on their ship, and then you get Osha with the stranger. And the third smaller part is for Nestra as she begins to try to figure out what's going on. Let's first get started on the stranger/Osha part. First I'll say the setting for where he has taken Osha is really cool. I love the part where early on after she wakes up, one, it echoes how the series started in episode 1. I thought that was a really nice touch. But when she goes outside and we see this ocean world, and then she's on an island, and you instantly, as a Star Wars fan, begin running through your list of planets. Like, well, could this be this place or that place? And they quickly flash up unknown planet. I love that little touch. Just like basically telling all the Star Wars nerds out there, hey, stop trying to figure out where this is and just pay attention, because there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. The location's really not that important. I will say, before I forget, one other thing I wanted to mention on the location is the little stone bird-like creatures are amazingly cute. I just recently watched the Jim Henson documentary that's on Disney Plus, and it instantly reminded me, like, this feels like a Muppets-like creature that Jim Henson could have created, and I absolutely love them. I think that's going to quickly come like a little fan favorite for this series, of these little bird-like creatures. So that was very, very cool. So the interactions between the stranger and Osha in this episode are really amazing, very interesting, very intense. I think, like a lot of people had anticipated after the last episode, that he might be trying to corrupt Osha and maybe turn her to the dark side and kind of replace May as his acolyte, maybe. So we see the early seeds of that, where he's trying to do these little subtle digs in there, explaining the dark side of the Force a little bit, trusting her with his lightsaber, basically saying, like, if you want to kill me, you can escape anytime you want to, trying to build up that trust, but at the same time working these small little digs in there to kind of get her to maybe not trust the Jedi as much, and maybe lean a little bit more towards his side. So very subtly corrupting somebody, much like you would expect a Sith to do if that is what he truly is. There was a few little moments that I really enjoyed, a lot of their interactions. One, when he has the little dig that when she first asks, is Sol okay? Oh, and is May okay? He's like, oh, it's very interesting you asked about Sol first and not your sister. That was a nice little kind of dig at her, that, like, hey, why do you not care about your actual family more than you do the Jedi? And then we get the little reveals, which we do not know if it's true yet, because anytime you're dealing with a dark side user, possibly a Sith, you can never really trust what they're saying. It kind of, to me, goes back to, like, the Dark Knight, when every time the Joker says something, you can't really truly believe what they're saying. But it could be true, you never know. And so he kind of reveals that, much like Osha, he was in the Order. He seems to be implying that he maybe left at a young age, maybe as a Padawan. He also kind of drops some references. It's been a long, long time. So we obviously know with the Force, especially with the dark side, some things can be controlled in regard to aging and stuff like that. So perhaps this stranger's a lot older than he looks. Maybe he is somebody that, in reality, is actually a similar age of Sol. I know not the last episode, there was a little bit of a tease that, like, he's kind of like, no, do you not remember me, Sol? And it's like, it'd be a neat little twist or reveal if we find out maybe he was a Padawan with Sol and they came up together and then something happened and Soul moved through the order and this stranger was kicked out. You can also kind of imply when Osha asks about his scars on his body that his Jedi master had basically stabbed him to the back. Is that literal or not? We don't know. Of course, again, we do not know what's true or not. I kind of wondered after the last episode if he maybe did have some connections to the Jedi Order, so I'm maybe inclined to believe it a little bit, but again, it's hard to know what you can trust from a possible Sith. I'll say the design on his little lair is really cool, very, very neat setting. How he explains how his mask works, where he basically, basically completely blocks out all his senses, so all you do is can trust in the Force, which is amazing when you go back and oh, he was wearing that when he was wiping out the Jedi, so basically with hardly any visions, sense of hearing, he was still able to destroy the Jedi. So it really shows how powerful in the Force he is. Also did enjoy that moment where he kind of explains the dark side of the Force to Osha and definitely says, it's the Jedi that say it's wrong. Is it truly wrong? Very, very interesting. I'll go ahead and finish up with their storyline. The ending of the episode was very, very cool, where it's basically Osha putting on the helmet and kind of experience that sensation, and we just hear her breathing. We kind of see what she can see through the helmet, and it suddenly goes to black. And it's very, very interesting. You kind of wonder, at this point, is she being tempted? Is she being corrupted? Very cool storyline on that side. The Soul May storyline also equally as interesting. One thing I want to touch on at the beginning of the episode, where Soul is kind of going through the ship and he's trying to fix the transmitter when they're not able to make really contact with the Jedi. He has that moment where he slams his fist down. You see rage, but then you also realize it's grief, and you hold onto his face for I don't know how long it actually was in the episode. It was probably just 5-10 seconds. It felt like it was 20-30 seconds, and it's almost like he saw all the stages of grief going through his face in those few little seconds. Absolutely amazing acting. It's one of those scenes, with no dialogue. You basically knew everything that was going through his head, and all the anguish, pain, and hurt he was dealing with at that moment. Was an amazing piece of acting. I wanted to salute the actor for that. But on this side of the storyline, you're entirely wondering, is Soul going to figure this is May and not Osha? By the end of the episode, he does. I'm very curious, at what point did he figure it out? Did he really know the entire time he was just playing along, or did he not figure out until the end where kind of Osha slipped a little bit? And what was the little phrase that she used that was different? He figured it out. But all those interactions were kind of interesting where, May is trying to prod him a little bit, especially at the end where she's basically like, what happened? Tell me what happened. You couldn't tell me when I was a kid. I'm not a kid anymore. Tell me. It seemed like for a second he wanted to, but it's like, I can't. So very, very intriguing there. All their interactions were kind of so tense of May having this clearly hatred for this individual, but trying to not let that get across, because obviously Osha didn't feel that way. And you almost feel like she was getting angry and angry as she kind of saw the life that Osha had, that she didn't. And we can only speculate, but I'm guessing her life was very hard after what happened to her coven. And she's probably looking at this ship and Osha grew up in this. She had this support system. These people took her away from me, and just made her angrier and angrier and angrier. The ending scene where after Soul has figured out who May is, and he's restrained her, and he's basically saying, we're going to go find your master and rescue Osha, but first we're going to have a talk. Like a lot of people had speculated, based on who is the director and the writer of episode 7, that we're probably getting another flashback to what happened with the Coven. And this time I'm guessing it is from Soul and the Jedi's perspective. And I am very, very, very interested to see what happened there. It should be a very interesting episode. Then briefly touch on everything with Vernestra. We see a little bit of her that, I wonder if she's kind of the person the Jedi Order has been kind of tasked with being kind of the liaison between the Jedi and the Senate. And we do see that there are some power struggles going on in the Senate where some people are beginning to use the Jedi as kind of political pawns to try to score political points. But we really don't know what's been going on lately. So if the Order's been making mistakes that their opponent's been trying to take advantage of, and I think this is what Vanessa's been alluded to the entire time. We cannot have a scandal at the moment. We have political enemies, and if something like this comes out, it's going to be really, really bad for the Jedi Order. Basically, Vernestra finds out about the distress call that basically Saul's entire team has seemingly been killed, except Saul, since he briefly was able to make contact, and she decides to lead a rescue mission. It's clear from the Jedi that are interacting with her that Vernestra probably doesn't really leave Coruscant hardly any at all. He kind of alludes to the fact, well, we know you get sick during hyperspace, which I thought was a very neat touch, alluding to the High Republic books. If you've never read the books, Vernestra actually kind of gets visions when she's in hyperspace, so it can kind of come across that she's sick, but she's more distressed, and she finds that a very stressful experience. So that was a nice little touch, alluding to something from the books that if you've never read the books before, not a big deal. But if you read the books, like, oh, that was a cool little moment. We get to the planet Kofar where everything happened. The team's investigating. They quickly find the Jedi. So I'll say one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen in a Star Wars TV show or movie is the sight of Jekkie's lifeless eyes just staring right into you at the screen. That's something you definitely did not see in Star Wars. That was both just her age and somewhat her innocence, and how much I like the character, but the fact her eyes are not being covered up. She's just staring at the screen. Like, all right, she's dead. I mean, that's again something you don't see in Star Wars moment, and definitely kind of hits home the loss that we experienced in the previous episode. Again, I think you're beginning to see the Order has begun to degrade somewhat, because all the Jedi with Vernestra especially, I believe it might be her Padawan, I'm not sure, basically is completely confused, like, what could have happened here? This doesn't make any sense. It had to be Soul going to the dark side, because if somebody was killed by a lightsaber, that's the only reason. And you can kind of see Vernestra almost thinking, like, you're a moron. What are you talking about? But very much almost kind of like going back to Yord, that like the Jedi at this point are having a hard time believing anything could actually be a threat to them. And when they're faced with that, they can't comprehend it. When during the High Republic era, that wasn't the case anymore. So I think we begin to see the degrading of the Order that then we see by the time the prequel that kind of allows for the rise of Palpatine. The one thing I did want to mention about Vernestra that was one of the cooler moments of the episode, we get to see her light whip, which is, for, again, fans of the book, that was one of the defining characteristics of Vernestra. Like, everybody wanted to see that, and when it was announced that Vernestra was going to be an acolyte, everybody's like, oh, are we going to see her version of the lightsaber that's actually like a whip? Please, please, please let us see that. I'm not sure if we'll get to see it anymore. Hopefully we will actually in combat, but that 1 second where she senses a creature and she instantly kills it with her lightsaber with the little light whip was amazing. And again, it also shows you the power of the Force she has, because the other Jedi there didn't even sense anything was happening, and before he realized what was going on, Vernestra had already neutralized the threat. An amazing moment. It kind of shows you the power that Vernestra has, maybe not so much power that the other Jedi have. So very, very intriguing episode. I enjoyed it so much. Had a lot of fun watching it. Again, fun in a different way. It wasn't the non-stop action. A lot of really cool character interactions. So in the comment section below, let me know, what was your favorite part about Teach/Corrupt? Or did you not enjoy the episode? If you didn't, let me know in the comment section below. Hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please hit that like button. If you have yet, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate the support. Thanks for watching. I'll see you the next time, and may the Force be with you.